remix album? I mean, okay, sure. I mean, we did have to wait almost 6 years in between one studio album to another, so I guess this is kind of nice for now, considering we know the band is currently in studio, working on what we can only assume is their next studio album. But for now, this is the holdover, and it's interesting for Paramore as they release R.E. This Is Why, because when they started teasing, we weren't necessarily sure what was going on here, but then we found out that they were releasing a remix album of basically the songs from This Is Why, with different artists kind of putting their own little spin on it, and even releasing an unreleased demo from the After Laughter era. And it's an interesting album, to say the least. I think my least favorite remixes on here, we have two different versions of Running Out of Time. The one that I didn't like, though, was by Zane Lowe with the more clubby type thing. I mean, it's not 2009 anymore. That shit is so outdated and ugly, and even when it was, like, a big thing, it's not great. It's not my thing, per se, so I thought it was absolutely terrible. Big Man Little Dignity, which was DOMI and J.D. Beck, did okay in a way, but at the same point in time, I look at it with the rest of the remixes on here, and it wasn't great. And then Figure 8 by, I think you would say, like, Bartees Strange. It's one of those things where it's one of my favorite songs from the record, and they completely ruined it by having Haley's voice almost kind of like slow pitch the whole time. You know how there's that trend where, like, you speed songs up and you slow songs down and then bands will, like, re-release them? It's basically what Paramore did here. They just had a different artist do it for them, and it completely ruined the enjoyability of the track. Then in the OK section, we have the other Running Out of Time remix, which is by Panda. This one's a little bit more soulful, how do you say. It's not necessarily my favorite, but it's nice. It can get boring at times, but you gotta admit, it's very, very well done. And then You First by Remi Wolf, again, was nothing super, super special. I feel like looking at it from all the other remixes that we are going to be talking about, it definitely doesn't stand out from the rest. It's just kind of like there. Then when we get to my favorite remixes from this record, we have the title track, which is done by Foals, This Is Why, where they kind of, I mean, they use Haley's voice throughout. I don't think you hear them sing throughout the entire 6 minutes. They just kind of remix it, and it's done very nicely. It kind of gives you an introduction as to how this remix album is going to at least feel. I don't want to say sound, because they use so many different people, so many different sounds on this remix album. Then we get to The News, which is done by the Linda Lindas, and I mean, there couldn't have been a more perfect song for them to remix if they were to do it. I mean, you gotta praise Paramore for doing this. I mean, the only time you really hear the Linda Lindas sing is during the chorus, but they add their own instrumentation to it, and, you know, they kind of bring the original version of the track in as well. So it was very, very well done. And then we have C'est Comme Ça, which I didn't like. That was probably my only least favorite song in the original album. The way Wet Leg does it here, I think, is the way it was intended to be done. It's not obnoxious and annoying. It's done just right, at the right tone and the right pace, that I feel like you gotta praise them for doing that, because I don't know, like, listening to it with this version as opposed to the original, I enjoyed it a lot more and was like, wow, this thing is not annoying with the, you know, loud, obnoxious na-na-na-nas. They just, you know, have it flow nicely, and it's still around the same amount of time as the original track, so it doesn't last longer than it needs to. Then we have Liar by Romy. This is where we start getting into, like, the softer stuff. Obviously, Liar is more like a, not necessarily ballad, but it's kind of like an unwritten love song from Haley to Taylor, and Romy definitely uses their prowess to, you know, make it even sound more like a love song than it already did. With Crave, it's another song originally, with the original version, I wasn't necessarily too fond of, But with the way it's remixed here, it definitely, I think, again, sort of like C'est Comme Ça, that's the version that we needed from it for it to sound better. And then we have Thick Skull by Julien Baker of Boy Genius fame, and she also is, you know, pretty popular with her solo stuff. Again, like the Linda Lindas, you couldn't have picked a better song for Julien to cover in this case. I guess you'd call it a cover. These are all covers. They're just done in different ways from the artist. I mean, just the atmosphere, she kind of, you know, matches it but tones it down a bit from where Haley was, you know, at in the original version of the song. Plus, she brings in, you know, her vocals and Haley's vocals and kind of harmonizes together with it, so it makes it all the more interesting, and it just makes it look like she was intended to be on this track originally, even though she probably wasn't. It was meant for this, but I feel like if you would have put this on the regular album, then it could have been, you know, pretty cool in itself, Paramore having another feature like they did on After Laughter. But yeah, I think it was nice. I would say finisher to this remix album, but there's one more song we get on here that isn't even a remix. It's actually a Paramore song. It's a demo from the After Laughter era, and you can definitely tell it's from the After Laughter era because the sound is definitely reminiscent. It's called Sanity, and it's interesting because, you know, I'm surprised they went with a demo from that era rather than giving us a demo from this current era, but nonetheless, I understand why they tried to fit it on here, because when you listen to everything else, it kind of blends in with it, so, you know, plus I feel like Paramore just wanted to give us something that, you know, wasn't released. I feel like Paramore doesn't necessarily do that a ton, where they throw out demos and stuff, you know, themselves. They just kind of, like, keep most of that to themselves. I know over the years they've had, like, fan-made albums of unreleased Paramore songs and B-sides, but when it comes to Paramore, they're not like, here's this demo, check it out, but they actually did it here, and the song is actually pretty nice. I mean, I can see why it didn't make After Laughter. I don't think it would have been a good fit for the record, but putting it here and knowing that this is just the demo, so it might not even be like, it's not the way it's supposed to sound overall. It's nice for what it is, and, you know, if this was on a regular album, it might not be up to par, but since it's kind of on an album like this, I feel like it's fine, and it does its job, and it kind of, you know, after hearing a bunch of people remix Paramore songs, you're kind of left with, okay, here's an actual Paramore song that we haven't heard before, so, yeah. Overall, this is a nice remix album. I feel like there was some that were weak that I was expecting to be better, and I feel like, too, Running Out of Time shouldn't have been the song to get 2 remixes. I feel like if you're going to do it right, you do each song one time getting its own remix and then throw the bonus track in there, because now you got two Running Out of Time remixes, and Zane Lowe's is still just, again, god-awful to me. Respect the man as an interviewer and a radio host, but I don't know what the whole deal is with the DJ club beat stuff. That's just so 2009. Like, it just never has been something that I have been into, and I'm surprised that in 2023 people are still doing it. Like, how is that enjoyable to the ears? I couldn't even finish. He made it almost 5 minutes long, and I couldn't even finish because I'm just like, this sucks. I don't like it. But nonetheless, I wasn't saying that for a lot of these tracks. Now, this will be ineligible for a year-end list because it is a remix album. I'm not counting this as an actual studio album, so this will probably be the only time you really hear me talk about this. But nonetheless, I would go check it out. Give it a 7 out of 10 if I had to rate it anything. But until then, that's just my thoughts. Would like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think? But I will catch you all in the next one.